Hello Internet, just a quick announcement. My Black Raven adventure, The Vault of Sowdek, has just been released by Heroic Fantasy Quarterly. It was illustrated by Miguel Santos, and I always love seeing how artists depict scenes from my stories, actually getting to see the characters and places that I've only been able to visualize in my mind. This is now the 21st Black Raven story to see print, but you don't need to have any previous experience with the character in order to follow what's going on. It is a standalone. But if you do read it and you do enjoy the story, you can find the rest of his adventures in my collections Mountain of Daggers and Sea of Quills. Links below to find them on paper, ebook, and audiobook. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with Heroic Fantasy Quarterly, they publish heroic pulp and fantasy stories, and it's completely free for you to read. So there's no cost to you. Go and check it out and see if there's any other stories that you like once you're finished reading The Vault of Sowdek. They do have quite a bit to offer. Now, since many of my followers are writers or interested in being writers, Heroic Fantasy Quarterly is a paying market. They do accept submissions from authors, so definitely look into them if you do have any stories that you're interested in selling. But because paying authors and artists and keeping the lights on and everything does cost money, and since they don't charge readers in order to read it, if you would like to help support them, maybe score a few perks, they do have a Patreon campaign that they do. So if you like what you see there, you can help them keep publishing fun stories to enjoy by either joining their Patreon or picking up a copy of their physical books, The Best of Heroic Fantasy Quarterly Volumes 1 and Volume 2. Not trying to do a sales pitch here, I'm just trying to support a venue that does pay authors and artists for their work. The fantasy writing community is actually a much smaller circle than most people would even believe. Now, speaking of authors, one question that I do get a lot is, where do your story ideas come from? It's a fair question, but it's actually not that easy to answer. There's no one spot that all my story ideas come from, and very rarely does a story even come from a single idea. Usually what I have is a lot of individual ideas, just little nuggets, and eventually enough of those kind of get forged together, and it ends up having a story grow at it from there. But for most of my ideas, the best single ideas that I come up with come through travel, going out and seeing places that I'm not used to normally seeing, getting out of my comfort zone and just kind of looking at the world from somewhere outside of my normal routine. The Vault of Sowdek came from two big nuggets. The first was Edinburgh Castle. It is a huge fortress overlooking a cliff, and it's just beautiful. When I saw it, my first thought was, I'm going to have the Black Raven break into a place like that. The next one came from the Doge's Palace in Venice. During our tour there, we entered a room where scribes used to copy all of the important and legal documents in the city. Because knowledge was power, the Venetians put a great value in saving all records. But since they didn't want their national secrets to fall into the wrong hands, the individual scribes that were hired were only hired for short periods of time, and they were also illiterate, so they actually had to draw the letters from the documents onto the paper. They couldn't read what they were saying. I love the idea of these records being so valuable, being essentially national treasures. And from that, I had my story idea. I had a place, which is Edinburgh Castle, and I had an objective, which was these important documents that someone was trying to hide away. So with that in mind, feel free to enjoy and read The Vault of Sowdek and see how well I was able to pull off blending those two ideas together. Anyway, that is it, short and sweet. If you do enjoy reading the story, I'll put a link down below for another of my fantasy heist stories, The Mist of Lichthofen, which I did an audio recording for a few years ago for Black Static magazine. So if you enjoyed that, maybe you can listen to The Mist of Lichthofen and enjoy that as well. But until next time, have a great day.